So I know you guys are super excited for UFC 280, but I've got something else for you to be excited for. After UFC 280, the day after, on October 23rd, there's going to be Road to UFC Episode 5 and Road to UFC Episode 6. And if you've got no idea what I'm talking about, Road to UFC is a tournament where the winner is going to be getting signed to the UFC on a pretty nice contract. I've heard rumors that it's a much better contract than what the guys are getting signed off Dana White's Contender Series. If you're wondering, why do these guys have to go through an entire tournament, it's before that reason. But also, it's word on the street that potentially the finalist, even if they don't win the whole tournament, the finalists themselves might get signed to the UFC as well. So these guys really are fighting for something here. We're at the semi-finals right now. This is episode 5. There's going to be 2 episodes on the 23rd, so you're going to get 10 fights on the 23rd of UFC level fighters that are going to be trying to fight to get into the UFC. Very exciting stuff. So let's get into the semi-finals of the 145 tournament. Za Yi, taking on Kuyomi Matsushima. Just so you guys know, for my predictions, I am going to be taking a lot more weight into the Road to UFC performances over their previous performances, because a lot of these guys, with the exception of Kuyomi Matsushima, weren't fighting the highest level competition before Road to UFC. So they were fighting pretty good opponents then, and now now that's what I'm going to be talking about, because, MMA isn't as developed in Asian countries as it is in the USA or in the States, or even maybe even you could make an argument for Europe and kind of areas like that. So that's why maybe these guys haven't been fighting the best levels of competition, but they're really showing out for this tournament. I'm looking forward to it. So first fight of the night, Za Yi versus Kuyomi Matsushima. Kuyomi Matsushima, out of everyone in the whole tournament, has fought the best level of competition. You've got to look at the guys that he's lost to. Martin Nguyen, I believe he went on to be a 1 champion. Gary Tonon, I know that he went on to be a 1 champion, or at least a 1 title challenger, and he's got a win over Jae-Won Kim, who's 10-3, Won Il Kwon, who was 7-1, and I believe he lost to another big name over at one, or in one of the regional promotions as well, which you should be able to recognize in Marat Gafarov, and Marat Gafarov is a pretty big name as well. I think he's still signed to 1, but yeah, Za Yi, 20-3 versus Kuyomi Matsushima, 13-5. I feel like the records are a little bit misleading. I feel like Kuyomi Matsushima, as I said, has been fighting much higher level competition than Za Yi, but Za Yi looked so impressive in his Road to UFC fight that I am going to be picking him. I actually picked him to lose against Kasasu, and he submitted him in the first round easily. And I picked Kuyomi Matsushima to beat Jung Yong Hong, and I thought he was going to do a lot more dominantly than he did. It was a very close competitive fight, and I didn't really like how Kuyomi looked compared to how I thought that he was going to look, especially considering he was looking pretty good over at 1, which is a massive promotion over in Asia, I believe. I would say Bellator might be number 2, 1FC is probably number 3, maybe PFL is fighting for number 2 and 3 as well in there, but 1 is a major promotion. And so Za Yi is going to be a very slight favourite in this matchup, -120. I don't mind him. He's definitely not a super confident pick, but I do like Za Yi to win. He's got good grappling. I think he's going to be looking to take the fight down. Kuyomi Matsushima, I think, is the better striker of the two. Keelung taking on Seongguk Choi. I'm going to be taking Keelung here. Keelung was a -700 favourite against Wallin Del Rosario in his last matchup, and he didn't really look like a -700 favourite, but he did win the fight. And he's coming off a loss in Dana White's Contender Series to Erison Fahea, which you could argue that he won. He got a knockdown in that fight. He even got a couple of takedowns as well, or at least 1 takedown in that fight as well. So it was a little bit of a sketchy. It wasn't a sketchy decision. It was just a decision that potentially could have gone his way. And Seongguk Choi is only 5-1. Once again, I picked him to lose against Rana Sapandi because I thought that Rana's experience and his experience against better competition would have driven him through there, and Seongguk Choi looked great on the feet. He really hurt Ramasapandi in multiple moments on the feet, and this is what I mean. Seongguk Choi, he hasn't fought good competition at all. I mean, his 1 losses to Steve Ursig, who's a guy that is from Australia, might be getting signed to the UFC very soon. He's actually 8-1 right now in his career, but yeah, Seongguk Choi. He's training under the Korean Zombie MMA. I think that's his gym there. He's a striker for the most part. Keelun, he's also a striker, but he's also got good takedowns. And I like Keelun in this matchup here. 16-8, not the prettiest record in the world, but very experienced. And once again, not over the good competition at all. But he showed good skills against Erison Fahea. I mean, he should have won that fight, in my honest opinion. He should be signed to the UFC right now. -175 for Keelun. I don't mind it. It's definitely not something to be confident in, considering how good Seongguk Choi looked against Ramasapandi, and he probably has made rapid improvements since then. But I'm going with Keelun. I guess the underdog in the Tapology predictions, but the favourite in the fight. Top Noi Kiram versus Hyun Sung Park. I love Top Noi Kiram. He's honestly like one of my favorite fighters to watch. He's so funny. This guy walked out against Yuma Horiguchi. You've got to watch that fight. You've got to just watch it to see what see what I'm saying. The Topnoi Karam walks out. He stares down the camera. He's in the middle of the fight and he's like yelling at the camera. He's like yelling at the commentary. He's just a really funny guy to watch. And Yuma Horiguchi is no joke of a win, like, at all. Yuma Horiguchi is very good. He doesn't have the prettiest record, but this guy is really good. I mean, the guys that he lost to, Ludovic Shalinian by split decision, Leandro Gomez by split decision, beat Jonathan Freelo, who's fought on Dana White's Contender Series. I believe he's fought on Dana White's Contender Series. Mark Clamarco, who was undefeated at the time. Charles Johnson, split decision loss, who's now in the UFC. Topnoi Karam, who just lost to Topnoi, but then he just bounced back against Juan Perota, who definitely fought on the road to UFC last year in 2021, and he submitted him after getting beaten up. So good for Yuma Horiguchi. That's a well-aging win for Topnoi Karam. And I think he beats Hyun-Sung Park. Once again, Hyun-Sung Park hasn't fought the greatest competition at all. Like, he's been fighting debuting guys and guys with just not pretty records. And then he fought Jeremiah Suriga. And Jeremiah Suriga was a lot smaller than him in the matchup there. And it was just a fight which I feel like Hyun-Sung Park was going to win. I picked Hyun-Sung Park to win that fight. And he did win that fight. But I'm picking Topnoi Karam. He's the underdog on Tapology again, man. I feel like his performance over Yuma Horiguchi is so good. Like, he's got really good Muay Thai, he's got really good striking, he's got really good fight IQ as well. Like, I was actually very, very impressed by his performance on the road to UFC in the first round. I mean, he has lost to Kai Asakura and I guess Yusaku Nakamura. I feel like that Kai Asakura loss you can't blame, like, at all. I like Topnoi Karam in this fight, man, I really do. Now, this is a fight which, let's have a look at the odds, actually. Topnoi Karam is a very slight underdog, -110 for him, -115 for Hyun-Sung Park. Minwoo Kim taking on Toshiyomi Kazama. It's a really tough one, and the only reason why it's super tough is Minwoo Kim has not fought for about 3 years, which is absolutely insane, but I'm still going to be picking him to win the fight, man. Toshiyomi Kazama beat Kiramawali Maimai Tohiti. I bet you Bruce Buffer could say that a lot better than I can, but Kiramawali Maimai Tahiti was actually one of like my number one picks to win the whole thing. This guy had fought really good levels of competition. He was holding wins over a lot of guys in this tournament as well. A lot of the better guys in the tournament, I thought. And Toshiyomi Kazama went out there, used his judo, he's got really good judo background, and beat him that way, beat him in the grappling. And I mean, but the problem was, though, he's coming off a loss to a guy that was 2-2 by KO. Like, just, you know, it's a little bit weird. But then Minwoo Kim, you know, he's a great striker. He's got great grappling as well. I feel like he's just really well rounded. He has not fought white much at all, and he could look terrible. But I'm kind of banking on him looking really good. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird situation like that. I'm banking on Minwoo Kim looking good. He didn't fight on the first round of Road to UFC, which is a little bit sketchy, but it's because his opponent, I believe his opponent pulled out because he was sick, or something along those lines. I know that his opponent pulled out, so he wasn't able to make that fight. I'm picking Minwoo Kim. You can't be confident in this fight. I feel like maybe if you're going to pick someone, and as a safe pick, I think Toshiyomi Kazama is the safe pick, but I'm going to be going Minwoo Kim in this matchup here. He's actually -240. Which is ridiculous. I think at +200 or so, Toshiyomi Kazama is a very live underdog, but I'm going to be going Minwoo Kim. And with the Road to UFC fights, there's actually non-tournament belts, like belts that are not part of the tournament. So these kind of act as like a Dana White's Contender Series fight. Last time around, there were 4 of them. Only one person actually got signed off that non-tournament belt, but I feel like if Balajin wins, UFC should sign Balajin. I mean, Balajin's a guy who I've been screaming at from the rooftops for months now. He hasn't fought for over a year. But I've been telling everyone about Balajin. A lot of people are talking about how Chinese MMA is up on the come up and Asian MMA is on the come up. I'm saying, man, sign Balajin. I'm saying the UFC should sign Balajin. This guy's 23-3. 2 of his losses are to the same guy, which is very interesting. But, yeah, Balajin is on a massive win streak right now. He's got really good wrestling. He's been training at a Fight Ready MMA as well for a while with a couple of his other buddies over there. And yeah, he hasn't been fought in good competition. You know, like 17-5 is a pretty good win. 11-8 is an okay win, but like when you got a record like this, you want to be fighting better competition. But it is what it is. He's taking on Casey Kasasu. You might recognize him. He lost to Zha Yi in the first round, I believe, in his Road to UFC fight. But they've invited him back. I like Kasasu. I think he's a very exciting fighter and he has fought good competition, but I think this is just a bad matchup for him. Balajine's a wrestler, and he really brings like a, I don't know what I would call the style, but I think it's like a specific style to China. I don't know what I would call it, but he's definitely got like an interesting wrestling style, almost like an Eastern European style, but it's it's like his own sort of style, and he brings that, and he wrestles, man, and he wrestles and he grapples, and he's good at it, and I think he's going to be able to do that to Kasasu, grind him up against the cage, work on him, and I think he's going to get a submission at some point in the fight. I do think that he's going to get a finish here, so I'm picking Balajine by submission, and Balajine is minus 135 right now. I don't think that there's bad odds for him, man, but I feel like it's because he hasn't fought anyone good, man. He just hasn't. We've got to be realistic. He has not fought anyone that's tested him, apart from this random guy on Tapology named Vasily, which is weird. But I actually talked to the guy that made Balajine's Tapology page. His name is MMA Ecosystem. He's a very reliable source for news, especially around the Asian MMA scene. And he said that when he's watching these fights in China, and there's these fighters that don't have a Mandarin name or a Chinese name, they just use the first name or the last name, one of the two. So it's actually very hard for him to find who this guy is actually fighting if they're not Chinese or if they're not putting the full name. So that's an explanation there for you guys. He's also got a win over Charles Bennett, which is actually quite funny. But yeah, it is what it is, man. He hasn't fought great competition, but he's looked good doing it. He's winning a lot of decisions, which isn't really the best look in the world. But I really do think that Balajine should win this one with this wrestling and get a submission at some point in the fight. Hopefully that wasn't too long a video. 11 minutes for 5 fights, I don't think is too bad. I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to upload episode 5 and episode 6 as separate videos. Just kind of keep things nice and easy. So I'll see you in the next one.